Hello everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Hollywood Tower Hotel Preservation Society, or HTH Society for short. I'm Trevor Edwards. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Bellcaptain, and I'm the lead modeler and project historian for the Hollywood Tower Hotel Preservation Society. So what is the HTH Society? The HTH Society is a collective group of people who passionately and deeply love the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror attraction found at Disney parks around the globe. It currently, as of December 2019, consists of myself, Taylor, our lead texture artist and project lead, and Roy, our lead programmer. Our group formed back in July of 2017, not long after the closure of the California Adventure Tower of Terror, when I was contacted by Taylor. At the time, I was working on a 3D printed version of the DCA Tower of Terror, and Taylor wished to purchase the 3D renderings that I had done to use for this. In response, I decided I'd just make new ones. The 3D printed versions were really kind of hodgepodge pieces. They were meant to be printed and then connected together in reality, so they weren't really consistent and they weren't formed in a proper way. So I decided I would make brand new models for this project. What this project is a VR recreation of the California Adventure Tower of Terror as it stood between May of 2004 and January of 2017. Our current working title is Tower of Terror Reopened, but that may change in the coming future. Nothing's 100% nailed down outside of what we're planning. Currently, we're looking at trying to bring a digital recreation back to the reality, to bring guests back into the haunted halls of the Tower of Terror, if you will. And it's going to be completely VR connected. Like, you can put on a VR headset and walk through the hotel and experience the Tower of Terror just like you were there, 3-4 years ago. So, why are we doing this? Well, I can only really speak for myself, but the Tower of Terror means a lot to me. When I was growing up, I was never really a big thrill ride person. I didn't go to theme parks very often. I went to Disneyland a few times in my childhood, Universal Studios a couple times, Knott's a few times. But I wasn't interested in that kind of world. I was really big in the model trains and stuff when I was a kid, and I thought I was going to be a train engineer, but that kind of shifted with an obsession with Jurassic Park. I wanted to be a film director and tell stories. And then I had an architecture kick, so I was really interested in buildings and building architecture and design. It wasn't until November of 2003. In November of 2003, I went to Disneyland, and for the first time in probably 8 years, and I was going to see California Adventure for the first time. Now, I had heard kind of the mixed reaction to California Adventure, and I'm putting mixed kind of light on that. It wasn't a good park. There wasn't really anything to do. Soarin' was probably one of the best rides, the most unique, the most Disney, I would say. So it was, kind of a depressing place to go. But we arrived at Disneyland, and obviously something that stood out to me was this massive Pueblo Deco building in the background. This giant, neon sign that said the Hollywood Tower Hotel, and this weird purple, stain on the building. I was captivated by just the architecture. I was curious about that. My parents were back and forth about, is this building in the park? Is it outside the park? It's really big, and it doesn't seem like a ride. That building's huge. The DCA Tower of Terror is the tallest building in the city of Anaheim, or at least it was when it opened. So you could see this thing for miles, and I wanted to know what it was. So we went into California Adventure first, and I think during the entire time we were in DCA, we passed 3 or 4 other people, so it was really quiet. But I remember walking down Hollywood Pictures back lot, of what it was called at the time, and when we turned the corner onto what would become Sunset Boulevard, there was a wall there, a construction wall. But on that wall was these big, beautiful billboards that said, coming spring 2004, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I was instantly obsessed. When we got home that night, I started researching it, and much to my surprise, there was a version that already existed. And it's funny when I say that I was surprised by that, because I grew up watching the Tower of Terror movie with Kirsten Dunst and Steve Guttenberg. I I will admit the movie's really cheesy and not very good, but I loved it. I loved it when I was growing up. It was kind of a fun, creepy horror movie for, families in a way. And plus it had this beautiful vintage haunted abandoned hotel. I thought that was gorgeous. Um, so I didn't know it was based on a ride. Being a kid, I didn't stick around for the credits where it says based on Disney's The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. So I never connected the dots. Not until I researched it. When I started researching, I started looking at now defunct websites like Service Elevator and towerofterror.org, and I started looking into what this ride was like. And it made me a little nervous. I was never a thrill ride person. Growing up, I hated the idea of going on like a coaster or something like that. The most thrilling thing I'd ever been on was Pirates of the Caribbean. So going from Pirates of the Caribbean to Tower of Terror was this massive leap in intensity. But I wanted to go on it. I was raised with old TV shows growing up. My parents are a little bit on the older age, so things like I Love Lucy, MASH, and The Twilight Zone were kind of staples in my household, and I had an affinity for The Twilight Zone. I thought Rod Serling's method of storytelling was unbelievably perfect. I love his horror sci-fi series, and I love all the stories of The Twilight Zone. Some episodes are obviously better than others, but it still was one of those shows that just really grabbed my imagination. So knowing that there was a ride for this, I knew that I had to go on it. As May approached, I kept researching it and learning about Walt Disney World's version and learning how they recreated, Twilight Zone motifs and styles, and how they designed the building, and I read about the script and all this, and I watched QuickTime videos of on-ride footage, and I was amping myself up. When May came finally, I ended up going with some neighbors, and we went to the park, and they already had been on it, so they knew what to expect. I, however, had no idea. So I was kind of in the dark the whole time. But I know that I was nervous, and I got even more nervous when we started approaching the building, because you could hear the screams. Like, the doors are opening at the top, and people are screaming, you could see the elevator dropping, and I'm just like, no. But I needed to go on this, so I forced myself to walk on down and get in line. And back then, the line was that was like an hour wait, and that was big. DCA had never seen waits before, so this was an unexpected twist. I still remember walking into the lobby for the first time and just seeing that gorgeously abandoned lobby, and it stuck with me. Every element of that attraction stuck with me, from the lobby to the pre-show, to getting on the ride, to the ride sequence. I loved every second of that ride, and that obsession just exploded. I instantly became enamored with theme parks and themed entertainment and storytelling, and I wanted to become an Imagineer. So over the course of years, I started studying more and more about attraction making and theme park making and stuff like that. And that's how I got into the field that I am today. I currently am a scenic designer. I got into it because of wanting to design the show scenes and the storytelling that you see in attractions. Now, how this led to this project was I obsessively wanted to recreate Tower of Terror. I built Lego models of it, or I tried to. I designed them. I tried to build a foam poster board version of it, plastic, and then the 3D printed one. And that's when Taylor contacted me and brought me into this. And this is honestly one of the most complete versions I've ever done. The project's nowhere near done. We barely have the lobby done. It's mostly just props at this point. The libraries are basically done. the boiler room's been started, the exterior is pretty much done, but we have a lot of like small details and sections to do, not to mention the grounds of the building as well is just nowhere near started. But that's okay. The next closest finished one I have is my Planet Coaster version that I did, and it was just an exterior and grounds. It was more like a model, if you will. So this is really the most complete. But Tower of Terror stuck with me, and it had such a massive impact on my future. And I know a lot of people say that, you know, DCA version is the lesser version, but it was kind of my version. I really loved the DCA Tower of Terror, and I feel like its loss kind of still ripples through the park. I won't really comment on my opinions about Guardians, but Tower of Terror was kind of my ride, and I do deeply miss it. So this is my way of being able to re-experience it, and also kind of having a hand in its history, I guess. And speaking of, I probably should talk a little bit about what I'm doing here. I'm currently, in this video, recreating a plaque that sits on the front desk in the lobby. This plaque has the amenities that the front desk provides, guest registration, cashier, things like that. Now, you've seen me probably flipping back and forth between pictures and the program I'm working with, and those pictures are a combination of pictures that I've taken myself or pictures that I found online. And this is really like a bit of my archive. I have a probably 11 gigabyte folder full of photos and videos and other types of media and stuff like that relating to the Tower of Terror, particularly DCAs. But I have recently extended that preservation to the other Tower of Terrors, just because I'm a little concerned for their well-being over the course of the next few years. I feel like DCA's loss is going to eventually catch up with the Walt Disney World in Paris version. I feel like the recent changes to Paris's kind of imply that. I don't really have anything against the changes at Paris's, but at the same time, I kind of miss the Rod Serling narration on the in the ride and stuff like that, and I feel like the removal of a lot of the Twilight Zone elements kind of hampers the experience, if you will. Anyway, the program that I'm using here is called Vectorworks. It's a themed entertainment theater drafting program. If you ever get a chance to use it, you'll find almost every theater lighting instrument known to man in there, and they're all programmed to like function. They have the ability to turn on and off, you can change their color and close shutters and stuff like that, and it's really nice to be able to visualize what you're trying to do with theater lighting before you implement it. I was taught this program through my degree in theater tech as a program to both do scenic and lighting drafting, which I've kind of ended up like thinking outside the box by using it for this project in itself. I'm doing a lot of very complicated and needlessly excessive techniques to get the things I need done. And honestly, I probably could have picked up a program like Maya or Blender, but I was a little stubborn. I wanted my project now, and I didn't really want to wait and have to learn something new. But ever since then, I have actually picked up Maya. I am self-teaching myself it, so it's a little bit of a slow process. Vectorworks I do know very well, and I can do some very complicated things with it. So it's what I go to as my primary modeling program. Once I'm done with the prop, I'll export it and import it into Maya, and then in Maya I'll do some quick fixes. I'll remove faces if I need to, and then I will apply a UV map and export it, and then send it to Taylor, who will then texture it. And after it's textured and exported from Substance Painter, we'll upload it into the Unreal Engine, which is where our project currently sits. But yeah, so I am wrapping up with the project here. I'm finishing up the base. I had made the base at the beginning, and once I got the plaque finished, I went back and redid the base, so that way it would kind of fit the scale and the size of the plaque that I ended up coming out with. So I'll go ahead and let the video wrap up here, and at the end you'll see some quick shots of the plaque in the Windows 3D renderer. I've been Trevor Edwards. Again, you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Bellcaptain, and we are the Hollywood Tower Hotel Preservation Society. You can follow us on Instagram at HTH Preservation Society and on Facebook at the Hollywood Tower Hotel Preservation Society. Thank you for dropping in. We hope to see you all again soon.